17, 69.
I finally can't say hi. Stop messing with me. You're going to mess everything up because we're live and have been for several seconds. All right. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So without further ado, we are going to let the legendary creator of Falstaff Books, Mr. John G. Hartness himself, introduce himself. So John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Leo. I like long walk. Oh, wait, different venue.
You don't like long walks on the beach. That's outside.
I don't like long walks anywhere. That's why I'm fat. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books. We're an independent press based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I am an old theater nerd. I've been an actor, director, designer, producer, arts admin, theater director, all that jazz back in a former life. I write multiple series, including the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter books, the Black Knight Chronicles, and the Bubba the Monster Hunter series, which we'll talk about a little later. And, I go to a couple dozen conventions a year and sling paperbacks like I'm a cheerleader spreading chlamydia.
Okay. Do you ever hit anyone in the forehead when you sling them, or do they manage to catch every time?
Depends on whether I like them or not. If I don't like them, I throw hardcovers.
So the next part of the introduction, dear listeners, we say how we first found them. So I found them because Cisca said, hey, here be this guy, talk. And here we are. But Cisca, what bar did you meet him at?
Was it the Liberty Con bar or the Dragon Con one?
It would have been Dragon because I first saw you at Liberty.
Yes.
You were walking by. And so whoever was introducing you around introduced you to the person at the booth next to me. And I heard who you are. I was like, okay. And then you were not walked over to be introduced to me.
That was the year where I was in a state of shock.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was less than 3 weeks after I became track director, and people were telling me congratulations, and I kept going, how do they know I'm graduating from college again?
Yeah. Exactly.
And my friends go, it's not that, dummy. And I'm like, oh yeah, for that thing. So
now you got to ask him the religion question, and I have to decide if he gets to stay.
So
probably not.
He probably does, because I like him, and we all know my vote counts more. Just ask Grandpa. Also,
I'm too heavy to move. There's a lot of inertia.
There is that, I guess. So, Aliens, Interstellar, or Space 1999?
I have to go with literally the only one I've seen, which is Aliens.
Okay. Since we're polytheistic and we cross the spectrum, how about Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or Blade?
Buffy. Actually, more Faith, because Faith.
Faith is awesome.
Yeah. The character is awesome too.
Freakishly.
There we go. Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, definitely the freakishly hot part.
And he reads the articles, he promises. That's why he gets the magazines, just for the articles.
Magazines? Bro, internet, come on. For real. How does Larry Flint still make a living in the age of the internet?
He doesn't, probably. I don't know.
Is he even still alive?
Who? Larry Flint?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Eric Flint is still alive.
Eric Flint is a very, very different individual. Dramatically so.
I don't know who Larry Flint is.
We'll tell you when you're older or when the podcast stops streaming so we don't lose family monetization.
I'm just going to make sure that you Google it later and that I'm looking at your face when you do.
Okay, so I'm only allowed to Google this at Dragon Con. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. You're going to have to remind me because I'll forget about it. Otherwise, I will. Yeah, God, you will remember.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to try and make sure Eric Flint is around when this happens. Because hilarity will ensue.
No, hell.
Poor
Okay, anyway.
Bowler will fly off.
Okay, so now that we have gone through that side trail, what would you?
And this is be one of the times we don't want you to send us mail when you look this up. Like Cisca does
Right.
not want those letters.
Oh, I
But if
know.
you do want to send them to her, it's Cisca@BastardsBladePodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can go share them to the Boinking Beasties page on YouTube.
I
Let's
think
do
you might
the one.
get banned.
Anyways, back to the show. So what would you say your first memory of, or actually really what your first love of the genre was? Science fiction or fantasy? Or was it horror knowing you?
Oh, well, that wasn't an option in the questions you sent me to prep.
I know we like throwing you curveballs. You like it.
I do.
That way.
Honestly, I don't know, because it was all around the same time when I started reading all of these things. I was probably 9 or 10. The first sci-fi book I remember buying was a paperback copy of Have Spacesuit Will Travel that I bought for $0.25 at a yard sale.
Wow.
And I remember buying it because there was this cute animal in a spacesuit on the cover. And I had no idea what was up, but it looked neat. But then I also remember reading the Chronicles of Narnia at about the same age.
Ah.
So, and then it wasn't more than a year or two after that I started reading Stephen King, because my brother, who was significantly older.
So which one did you fall in love with?
All of them.
All of them.
Absolutely. As soon as I read any of that, I was like, yeah, I'm in. Animals in spacesuits, I'm there. Going through closets to get to, I literally almost got a concussion trying to go through the back of my parents' closet to find Narnia.
So,
I can understand that.
Yeah.
The reason I prep the question the way I do is because I would consider, for most horror, when there's like monsters and stuff involved, I'd consider that a type of urban fantasy with a horror sub-element, because the creature itself, that's the horror element, would qualify as fantasy. Well,
so urban fantasy as a genre grew out of three different roots. It all roots in fantasy, but there's like a tree that is fantasy married with horror, and then there's another tree that's fantasy married with romance, and they all kind of meet in the middle to make urban fantasy. But remember, I'm an old fart, so urban fantasy didn't exist when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there wasn't a YA shelf in the library, so even though Have Spacesuit Will Travel was one of Heinlein's juveniles, in my little hick town, they didn't have that in the children's section. So
They didn't have it in the children's section in Atlanta either, just to let you know.
Well,
just so you don't feel like you were quite in the boonies. But I mean, I am still in the South.
And I was totally in the boonies.
Oh, yeah, I know where you were.
Yeah. They still pump in sunshine. So horror was much bigger then too, because I was born in 73. So when I started reading genre fiction, it was probably 82, 83. And Stephen King was colossal. And I was definitely reading horror by then, because I remember waiting for the school bus on a foggy morning, sitting down at the end of my driveway, reading Salem's Lot.
That was 39 years ago. Just to make you feel
Thank you for that. I'll get you back for that next time I see you.
You're not going to make me look at Larry.
No, I'm just going to tell Eric Flint. Just going to tell Eric you thought he was Larry Flint.
I did not.
I know.
But he doesn't know that unless he watches this podcast.
Right.
So would you consider horror then part of the speculative fiction umbrella?
Absolutely.
So
certainly if you want to go broad into speculative fiction, horror fits under that.
So what is it about speculative fiction and all of the umbrella subsidiaries that you love as a genre?
More stuff blows up. The pacing.
You're on the FBI watch list.
No, actually, my theater work is why I'm on the FBI watch list, and those are stories I'll only tell in person. But
No.
yeah, there was a white van parked around the corner from my house for about 2 weeks in the early 2000s. But honestly, the pacing really appeals to me because while I love thrillers and mysteries and all that, they kind of meander a little more. And I have ADHD, and it's a real thing. So tighter, quicker pacing is very much appeals to me, and a lot of urban fantasy in particular is very quick. And that's why I prefer space opera or mill sci-fi to things like Dune or hard sci-fi. I don't want to have to look anything up. If I think I'm going to have to go back to grad school, I'm not interested. I love the fact that it's written. I love the fact that there are people who dig it. I'm just none of those people. I want pew pew zoom zoom.
I can understand that.
So yeah,
I read, getting my science degrees, I read a lot of fantasy because I needed a break.
You say science degrees. Yeah, the way I say science classes, like 2, and I barely passed the second one.
I do have 2 science degrees, actually.
There we go. Yeah, and I did take 2 science classes. I made the mistake of thinking that because I worked in a planetarium, the astronomy class would be really easy.
I can see that being a logical mistake.
Yeah, it wasn't so much standing talking about stars and stuff as it was math.
Yeah. As I said, mechanic.
The whole point of me taking calculus in high school was to never set foot in a math class again. And then I take astronomy and I'm like, wait a minute. This is false advertising. This is math. I should be, I don't know, blowing something up or cooking meth or learning something sciencey. I don't think we cooked meth in 1993, but I never cooked meth. Just
need to. FBI man, if you're still watching him, he has never cooked meth.
Right,
that's fine. I did not do at-home chemistry like they do on Breaking Bad.
So
there we go.
How did your love of the genre of speculative fiction writ large transition into you writing stories in that field?
Oh, I was reading a lot of it, and I thought I could do this. I mean, I'm moderately literate. This stuff's not really complicated. I can write. Somebody's paying these people for this. I could get paid to do this, and my day job kind of sucks. So it's not that I thought, oh, I can do this better. I thought I can do this as well as these guys are doing it. Spoiler. I sometimes can, but not always. Some of the people I was reading were really good. Some of them suck, and I'm better than them.
Yeah, but sometimes that's just nice guilty pleasure.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I have no guilty pleasures. If I like it, it's awesome. I mean, I've got tickets. I got tickets to go to a pro wrestling show tomorrow night, y'all. There is no shame in any of my pleasures.
This is not wrestling. It's wrestling. It's totally different, guys. Just so you know.
Well, yeah, it's in Charlotte. It's going to be wrestling.
So many authors let their own real life experiences influence the stories they tell. So were there any specific formidable moments that shaped you as a storyteller?
I work a lot of things into my stories, but I don't have any one moment. Like Stephen King in On Writing tells a story about him seeing a friend of his die as a child, and that it basically stunned him into silence, and he blocked it from his memory for years. I didn't have anything like that. I didn't have some great Stand By Me moment. I didn't have, leeches on my wiener or anything that would turn me into a horror writer. That would do it. I had a happy childhood. I just was always a big nerd and loved reading. So when I ran out of things I wanted to read, I figured, well, I guess I'll write something.
That's fair. If you had you do have some of my pesky friends. I never run out of things to read. If I think I might, they put things in my email box.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So says one of the people who's guilty is charged.
Yep.
So, but going to things from a fan angle, let's talk about, have you had any really cool fan art or somebody cosplay any of your characters yet? Doesn't have to be from the universe we're talking about tonight.
A few years ago, I wanted to repackage the Bubba the Monster Hunter series, and I wanted to create a logo for the shadowy secret government agency that is featured in the books, but I don't have any graphic design skills. So I opened it up to my fans and said, hey, if you're interested, I will give you copies of the book and a t-shirt, but I would like for someone to design a logo for me. And one of my fans came up with a really great logo for the Bubba series and gave me the rights to use it on my books and on t-shirts.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it was fantastic. Nobody's cosplay. I can't tell if anyone cosplays my characters. That's the trouble with urban fantasy.
Yeah.
Because I write about a giant ponytailed nerd with a beard and a lot of tattoos. Is somebody cosplaying a character, or is it just me?
Yeah. That is a very fair question.
Yeah.
Has anybody asked for your autograph out in public away from a convention or a book signing?
Kinda. It's actually even cooler than that.
Okay.
The first time I ever met Kevin Hearn, he was doing a signing in Charlotte. The third or fourth, I think it was the fourth Iron Druid book had just come out. And I really enjoy that series. And I wanted to go and meet him and get a book signed and thank him for all of the money I made being one of his Amazon Also Bots. Because at the time, there were only 3 guys writing male protagonist, smart-assed urban fantasy. And it was Jim Butcher, who hadn't put out a new book in 2 years, Kevin Hearn, who released 3 books in 3 months and then didn't have a book for a year, and then there was me, sitting along in number 3, happy to be there. And I was the next thing on the Also Bots after you ran out of Kevin Hearn and Jim Butcher books, and I reaped in the rewards.
Nice.
So I went to his book signing, and I had posted on Facebook that I was going and that I was excited to go. And as I'm standing in line with a copy of Kevin's book to get signed, some guy walks up with one of my books that he had bought in the store and had me sign my book while standing in line to get my book signed.
That's awesome.
It really was. I felt like a rock star, and everyone around me looked very confused.
That is awesome. Normally we ask, have you ever spotted your book out in the wild? But I think that counts, right?
Yeah. I ran into somebody at Dragon Con actually reading one of my books at the lobby bar of the Westin. And I was like, hey, did I sell that to you? And they're like, yeah, a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, you're just starting it now? What the hell? I've written like 5 books since then. Oh, really? Well, I'll go online and buy those now. I said, all right, good. I'll buy you a beer.
So what is your funniest or weirdest fan interaction?
Random question. Does that make the beer tax deductible? Asking for a friend.
I own a publishing company. All beer is tax deductible.
I need to remember to go drink with you this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to need it.
It's marketing. It's a marketing expense. I don't know that I've had any real weird or funny fan interactions. I've had, it's just kind of awesome. Oh, one weird one. The Whoopi Goldberg thing was pretty weird.
Yeah, share the Whoopi Goldberg thing. I think I remember that one.
I was sitting at home writing one day, and this email, the email notification, in the top corner of your screen, comes up, and it says, "From Whoopi Goldberg." And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I click on it, and it says, "Hi, I'm a fan of your Quincy Harker books," and all of this, and talking about other stuff. And I reply, assuming that it's one of my Magic the Gathering friends pranking me, because some of those guys are computer nerds, and spoofing an email account would be nothing to them. But there was about that 0.5% chance that it really was Whoopi Goldberg emailing me out of the blue. So I was like, all right, well, I will behave as though this is real, even though I have no expectation for this to be real. And we exchanged a few emails back and forth over the course of the day. She was asking about the books and things. And after about the third one, I said, look, hey, I hate to be like this, but can you send me a picture or something to show that you're really you? Because, pranks, and it's a thing. So she shot a video standing backstage at The View and said, "Hey, John, this is Whoop. I just wanted to let you know it's really me." And then I peed a little. So yeah, Whoopi Goldberg just randomly hit me up and said, "Hey, I like your books."
So do you send her signed copies now, just cause?
I sent her the omnibus, the limited edition omnibus, when it came out. But she consumes most of her books via audiobook. So
that makes sense.
She gets them that way. But I did send her the signed 1,000-page omnibus edition when that dropped, because it's a pretty nice volume. So
I've listened. You have a good narrator for these books.
He's fantastic, and he found me. I wasn't doing audio for the Quincy Harker books because audiobooks are ridiculously expensive to produce. And James reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to narrate this first Quincy Harker book." And I said, "Okay, what do I have to do?" He said, "You have to sign these papers and upload it to Audible." I said, "Okay." So I did. And Audible through ACX has you can either pay someone up front or you can do a royalty split. The royalty split has been pretty good for both of us over the course of the years.
Nice.
And then after season 3, I sold the audio rights to the series to Tantor and put it in the contract that they have to hire James to do all the books. And he was already working for Tantor, so there was no argument there. So, yeah.
Nice. It throws me off when you have a new narrator. I will admit that.
Yeah. There's only been one short story that was narrated by anybody else. And that was because a friend of mine who does an audio book podcast wanted to read one of the shorts as part of his podcast. And I said, sure, go for it.
Aw, that's sweet.
Yeah. But with the Bubba series, we switched narrators after season 1, and that was a little jarring for some people. But the narrator I have is fantastic. So
this is the part where you get to tell us about everything you've ever written. So could you give us the Reader's Digest highlights of your body of work?
Everything we're gonna not go into everything I've written, because there's close to 30 books at this point. In my main series, the Black Knight Chronicles, which is light urban fantasy, similar to, I don't know. Yeah, I rip off Jim Butcher. It's total Dresden Files knockoff. I've told him, he doesn't mind.
I can see him just looking at it and going, did it work? Is it good? Okay.
Yeah. I hadn't hurt his sales any.
I'm not sure much will.
I think he's going to be just fine. So the Black Knight Chronicles is in its 8th of 9 books. The 8th book, Lady in Black, just released back in June of this year. And there will be one more, and then I'm putting that series to bed. By the time it releases, I'll have been writing those characters for 12 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's time. They've changed enough. I've changed enough as a writer. It's time to do something different. Then the Bubba the Monster Hunter series, it's kind of confusing to keep track of. Technically, what I just released a couple of weeks ago is season 5. But season 1 is 10 short stories and a novella. Season 2 is 10 short stories and a novella. Seasons 3, 4, and 5 are 4 novellas each. All of these things are also available for sale individually as ebooks. So there's something like...
You should talk to your publisher about giving you that kind of a headache.
You know, I would, but since he's the schmuck who has to do the layout... And then the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter series is now, I'm currently working on book 8 in that. And that one also confusing because the first 4 are 4 novellas. So that's actually the first 16. And then I switched to novels. So 5, 6, 7, and 8, and moving forward, they're all novels. I'm really lucky that my fans have stuck with me and have been able to follow things. And the pinned post in my Facebook group is reading order. How to buy all of this crap so you know what's going on.
That's fair.
That's fair. So,
and I've done a few standalones.
So those all sound fascinating. But today we're going to talk about Scattered, Smothered, and Chunked, the first book of the BubbaVerse.
The best way to have hash browns?
Sure.
I've heard that. I don't actually eat my hash browns that way, but it was the most rhythmic.
I just like carbs.
Fair enough. Don't we all? They just don't like me. So where did you get the premise for the universe?
They like me. They come, they stay, they hang out, they don't leave.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, look, my cat.
So where did you come up with the premise for this story? Was it psychedelic?
Hold on. If I don't pick the cat up, he's going to cry through the rest of this podcast. If I do pick him up, he will run away in a couple of minutes. So you guys might have heard that there's another relatively popular urban fantasy series with the words Monster Hunter in the series title.
Yes.
You may have heard of this.
Yes.
There have been times when people have asked me if Larry Correia's Monster Hunter International series was the inspiration for Bubba.
No, I think it predates MIA.
It doesn't, but it's very close. So I have to tell people that no, the series didn't. Larry, however, kind of did. So at DragonCon in, I think, 2011, I'm wandering through the vendor hall and I'm meeting some friends of mine who are, who have a booth, and there's this giant bald man standing there. And I was like, wow, it ain't often that I feel small. That's a big SOB. And that was Larry Correia. And he turned around and he handed me what might be the ugliest baseball cap I've ever seen. It was this lime green atrocity with the MHI logo right smack in the middle. And he said, hey, we're doing a flash mob and we're trying to get the Guinness World Record for the biggest flash mob. So wear this hat and come here tomorrow. And I was like, okay, who are you and what is this? And he said, this is my series, Monster Hunter International. I'm Larry Correia. Good to meet you. And I was like, hey, good to meet you. So then he's just gone. I'm like, okay, that's a thing that happened. And I look and I'm like, Monster Hunter International. That's kind of cool. And kicking around in the back of my head, I was looking for something to write because Bellbridge Books, who's my publisher with the Black Knight Chronicles, only wanted to release 1 book a year. And they had right of first refusal on everything in the Black Knight Chronicles universe. Well, I can't make a living off 1 book a year because I ain't Jeffrey Deaver. No, you have to hush. No. Oh, jump over there. Jeez. So I was looking for a property that I could create that didn't touch the Black Knight Chronicles universe. So I decided that, if there really were people hunting monsters, I would want that big goofball that I met at Dragon Con to be hunting monsters. So Larry is a big chunk of the physical model for the character. It's patterned after a blend of Larry Correa and an old friend of mine from when I worked concerts named Dr. Nick. So slap a big beard and long ponytail and full sleeves of tattoos on Larry. And that's where the inspiration for the character of Bubba physically came from. I think season 2 was out. So I'd been writing the series for about 3 years before I ever read any of the MHI books. And I was really glad to see that they're very, very different at their core.
They are.
Because, I mean, the MHI books are pretty straight urban fantasy, and Bubba's pretty darn horror comedy.
Yes, having read them both. And his books, don't take this the wrong way, they are safe for teenagers.
And Bubba
and
is
children.
not. Nothing I write. Let me think. Hang on. Fireheart. I have written a YA novel. Still not safe for particularly sheltered teenagers. I swear.
If you are a parent listening, and I do this myself, read everything your child read, or evaluate, or at least check out everything your child reads.
Absolutely. You certainly should. My parents didn't, and look how I turned out.
My mom did, and look how I turned out.
Okay, so this isn't foolproof, y'all. Your kids kids still might grow up going to conventions and being on nerd podcasts.
But you know what, though? The key here, though, is if you guide that child into reading books that you read and that you like, and then if nothing else, no matter how pissed off I was with my parents, at least I had something to talk to them about, and that was a book.
Yeah, my parents were not big readers, so.
My mom can read a David Weber in a day.
God, I can't even have a conversation with David in a day.
Just listen to him try and order pizza.
So before we dig in, can we just take a moment to look at your cover? So you made the bold decision to go with an all-white background. So what made you take such a minimalist approach?
Well, there was an original cover before this. This is the revamped cover. And when I did the original cover, it admittedly looks like a third grader's Photoshop project, because that's about the level of Photoshop ability I had in 2009. But what I noticed over the several years of selling the books at conventions was that everything in science fiction and fantasy is dark colored covers. So it stood out. It stands out on the table, and nothing looks like that. And then when you put a Waffle House order on the cover in big letters, that also pops a little. But it was because it was so different and so stark. I've always very much liked a kind of clean, uncluttered cover design. And I'm not very big on representational covers of characters, because I feel like if you can't afford to hire Chris McGrath, Michael Whalen, or some of the fantastic cover artists that are out there, don't just do some random 3D modeled mediocrity. If you can't do it really well, don't do people. So I don't do people, because I can't afford to pay those kind of rates.
That's fair.
Fair enough. So let's move on to the book itself. What would your 30-second elevator pitch be?
Depends on where I am, because I have to tailor my audience geographically. But if I'm in the South, which I usually am, it's Larry the Cable Guy and Buffy the Vampire Slayer have a love child, and he shoots a lot of crap.
Yes.
I also usually don't say crap.
I did not know that when we picked the religion questions, just so you know.
Right.
No, he did not.
You did not. You couldn't have. And then for a while, it was Buffy bangs the guy from Duck Dynasty, but then they kind of went away. So now we're back to Larry the Cable Guy. I also sometimes will say it's Ash versus the Evil Dead.
I can see that.
So anything that will put people in the frame of mind for comedic horror.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Next question is you, Doc.
Next
Put the
question
knitting
is
down.
what?
Put the knitting down. This is a
I'm
knit-free.
not doing knitting.
Sometimes she's knitting when she should be talking.
Aye, cool.
There's not often people can complain about my not talking.
Valid.
So, what is it that makes your series special in the crowded field of science fiction? Or, sorry, not science fiction, urban fantasy. I was paying attention. I've read this book. I liked it.
It's not urban fantasy. It's comedy. A lot of people can write urban fantasy with some snark or with a little bit of comedy in it. This is comedy with a horror setting. It starts the day shooting for comedy. And that's one of the things that separates me, Jeff Strand, Rick Gualtieri from the majority of urban fantasy. There are folks who are doing great work. Orlando Sanchez's Montague and Strong series is great urban fantasy with a lot of snark to it, but it's not comedy. It's urban fantasy with humor. The early Dresden stuff is urban fantasy with some humor. It's not comedy. So that is one of the things that separates this from the herd a little bit. Also, the fact that I have an unapologetically hillbilly protagonist. My main character was he was a defensive lineman for the University of Georgia Bulldogs till he blew out his knee, and now he hunts monsters. I mean,
well, you don't get much more hick than that.
You really don't.
No,
I mean,
you don't.
He lives in Dalton, Georgia, for God's sake.
I've been to Dalton.
I'm sorry.
There's not a lot there.
No, but there's some hills. So I stuck a fake cabin on one of those hills and put a Bubba in it.
Very believable, Bubba.
You know, they say write what you know. So beer drinking, strip clubs, and rednecks.
How do you
so what tropes do you think?
IPAs?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel about IPAs? I'm just curious because you're a beer drinker.
Oh, I'm actually not much of a beer drinker. Especially since I'm old and fat. I got the gout, so I can't drink beer no more. So I drink cider.
Fair enough.
Good God,
Cider's
what are you
awesome.
doing?
All right, back to delicious questions from Doc.
Oh, and I hate IPAs. Even when I'm drinking beer, I hate IPAs.
That is the right answer. I'm convinced it was invented by hipsters so they could feel cool.
Bold Rock makes a really amazing cider IPA. It's super dry. It's really nice. I like it. Maybe if you're nice, I'll bring one to you so you can try it.
So there's pretty much no chance I'm ever going to try it because I have to be nice to get one. Okay.
No. All you have to do is give me a book. No, I'm kidding.
Bribery will get you everywhere.
I'm pretty sure the last time we did the Fantasy Gather, I shipped like 200 books to your house.
You did. You did ship 200 books to my house, and which was really funny to watch. My mom comes in, she looks at me, and she goes, "What did you do? How much money did you spend?" And I went, "I didn't
Nothing.
do it." And ever since, I now get grief from everybody in my family for, you don't even go to a con this year and you still get books sent to the house. What happened?
They should see my poor UPS guy.
Oh, I'm sure he's very fit.
He hates me so much. Oh, my UPS guy hates me.
Okay, so we're going to ask tropeliciousness. Which tropes do you think Scattered, Smothered, and Chunks hits the best or the most offbeat?
Well, definitely the guy in the chair.
Okay.
Bubba is the big dumb redneck who shoots things. But for that to be successful, you got to have the guy in the chair. The guy that's talking to you on headset saying, hey, 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 don't go through that door. Something's going to, oh man, I told you. You got to have the guy in the chair. So Skeeter is Bubba's guy in the chair, and Skeeter's his best friend. And also in comedy, you play on the opposites a lot. Well, Bubba's 6.5 feet tall, 350 pounds worth of white redneck, and Skeeter's about 170 pounds worth of black gay tech nerd redneck. So
those were the cutest.
Yeah, so you put those together and you have inherent comedic tropes. And then there's the standard US comedy trope of fat guy with a woman that's way out of his league. I do that. Also kind of dumb male protagonist, really smart female bailing him out of trouble. I do that because I've been married a long time. And I am a fat guy with a wife that's way out of my league. And I am kind of dumb, and she bails me out of a lot of stuff. So, again, I write what I know.
I was going to say, because you have a handling team of 2 women who are amazing.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And they tag off in the middle of convention days sometimes. One will take the morning shift of getting me to panels and making sure I have a meal. And then midway through, they tag off, and the other one handles getting me to panels for the afternoon and evening.
And the funny one is, if you randomly say their name, you will watch John freeze and look for them and go, I didn't do it.
True story.
It's quite funny.
And when we made the Falstaff Books backpacks, I got theirs embroidered, and one says good twin and one says evil twin.
Nice.
So who got which one?
You'll have to find us at a con to find out. Mine says
I have one of those backpacks. I like it. It's a good backpack.
Mine says HMFIC.
So we kind of talked already actually about what subgenres you think this fits best into.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want to add any other ones, or should we talk about the story now?
Well, it hits on a lot because each season is a collection of short works, and I describe them as seasons because they're built like a I know, easy for me to say.
We broke him.
They're built like the seasons of a TV series. You've got an overarching story that continues to be moved forward, but then each episode may not touch on the long arc for more than a scene or two.
So what made you decide to do that method of storytelling with this? Because that's unusual for books.
I could release them more quickly.
Okay.
I could write a 10,000 word short in a week, polish it up, and when I started out, I could release one a month. And at the time, that was a pretty solid way to make a living income. Then things in the marketplace changed, and I changed with it and started doing novellas, and I would do 3 or 4 novellas every year. And then I added on the Quincy Harker series, and I was doing 6 or 8 novellas in a year.
So JR is obsessed with Bella, and are you going to do it?
Ask me again in 6 months.
Okay.
Because right now, I'm not interested in being an early adopter for Amazon's market research. I want to talk to some people 6 months in and see if they're making any money, see what's making money, and see what the time commitment feels like. Writing a serialized story is something I can totally do. I just want to see what the mechanics of getting paid are before I dedicate any of my writing time to it.
That's fair. So maybe we should do that in 6 months, JR. We'll do a Bella 101 on Bella.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't have the luxury of experimenting on something in a lot of time because this is how I make my living.
Yeah.
If I still had a day job, I could play and my income wasn't dependent on my writing, but it currently is. So I have to make sure that I'm going to be able to get paid.
That is a very valid point.
It's not so much that I'm a super uber fan of Vela itself, but I enjoyed short content. And so I like to see anything that makes that fiscally viable for authors, so there's more of it out there for us to enjoy.
I think it's really cool. I have the web novel app, and I think it's fun.
I love short content. I love serialized storytelling. I don't like the initial payment structure for Vela, so I'm waiting to see if they change it, or if I'm wrong, or if I'm right and it sucks and I don't want to do it. But looking at the money right now, I'm not nuts about how it looks like people get paid.
Okay.
So I'm waiting to see that shake out.
So back to our wonderful topic of the night. So can you tell us, well, you've actually told us a lot about the main characters, so why don't we talk about any secondary characters that were particularly standoutish to you?
Sure. I mean, we've talked a little bit.
We talked about his main sidekick.
It's basically a team of 4. There's Bubba and Skeeter, and then there's Agent Amy. She starts off the series as a federal agent. She's an agent of Demon, which is the secret agency tasked with dealing with cryptids. And y'all, I made it up, and I can't even ever remember what it stands for, but it's basically the same joke as Samuel L. Jackson told in the first Avengers movie, which is
Shield.
Somebody was working really hard to make it fit the word demon. So there's Agent Amy, and she and Bubba start off kind of flirty, and then very quickly move into a romantic relationship.
Were trailer parks involved?
What?
Were trailer parks involved?
No, Bubba inherited his great-grandpappy Beauregard's cabin up on the hill.
Yeah, but you got to add a trailer park if it's going to be truly authentically redneck.
Hey, no, you don't. There's all kinds of rednecks in the South. Be nice.
Also, trailer parks are kind of done. There's 2 or 3 people writing trailer park urban fantasy, so I actively wanted to stay away from that. And then there's Uncle Father Joe. And yes, that is a absolute redneck incest joke, except he is Skeeter's adopted uncle, and he's a Catholic priest. So he really is Uncle Father Joe, and not in a creepy way.
No, I do actually understand that. I can see that totally being that way in the South.
Yeah. So Bubba, being a great big old redneck on the top of a hill in Dalton, Georgia, I decided that it would be funny if Bubba was the Southeastern Regional Monster Hunter for the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Because, I grew up in the sticks of South Carolina, and the one Catholic family I went to school with had to drive half an hour to go to Mass. So I'm going to guess that if there's a Catholic church in Dalton, Georgia, there's probably only one. So having him work for the Catholic Church has inherent humor value to it.
Okay.
So those 4 make up the main team, and then some people will come in and make appearances. Some people will make recurring appearances. There's Barry, the Sasquatch. He's shown up a couple of times. That was the infamous Squatch Dong fight, where Bubba had to engage in hand-to-hand combat with a Sasquatch for supremacy of the tribe of Sasquatches. And I don't know if y'all knew this, but Bigfoot don't wear no pants, and everything's proportional. So you got a 6.5 foot tall redneck and an 8 foot tall Sasquatch, and his feet ain't the only thing that's big. So when in doubt, cheat. I do that one at readings when I feel like the audience just needs to be broken.
That is, wait a minute. Have we just uncovered the secret identity of Dr. Chuck Tingle?
Oh God, I wish I had that kind of money. Man. But even I don't have that level of dedication to one joke.
Yeah, I actually wonder if that's like a bot writing that, because they don't hardly sell any. So it's almost like the title is the joke, not the book itself.
Yeah. So I've bought a couple because I was like, this can't be a real thing. Oh my God, that's a real thing. They're educational.
Who came on our podcast who said he used to read it. They used to read it out loud in his unit in the Canadian Army.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not sure we'd admit to that.
I'm pretty sure the moose were scared.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
it's like we're men, and the sheep were afraid.
Yeah. Men were men and the moose were nervous.
All right, Doc, save us from ourselves and ask him about the bad guys.
But it's so much fun. Oh, I get to ask him about the bad boys? Is that what you said? So
bad boys, what you gonna do? I won't sing anymore because of ASCAP.
So, can you tell us a bit about the bad guys in your series, or without giving away too many spoilers?
Bubba has some family issues. That's really all I can give you.
Say that? Did they burn down his front porch so he couldn't put the Gracie out there?
No. Monster hunting's the family business, but sometimes they hunt back. So as we go through season 1, Bubba, it's mostly Monster of the Week stuff. And then we get to the end of the season and there's a big reveal and it's like, oh, well, I guess I got to go kill my daddy.
Oh.
And things escalate quickly. And then in season 4, he has to go to Fairyland to save his half-sister that he didn't know existed.
Hey, at least it wasn't Mommy.
Well, she shows up at the end of season 3 and makes things go all sideways.
Don't tell me that. I want my son to love me forever. Boys should be nice to their mamas. We squeeze them out.
Fair enough. And I'm going to guess that Bubba was probably a difficult delivery.
You think?
Well, speaking of characters, if you ever met yours in a dark alley and they knew who you were as the creator of the hell,
I'm so screwed. So
you couldn't wrestle him?
I'm a lover, not a fighter, baby. I am built for comfort, not for speed. No. Also, Bubba carries a Desert Eagle. Because when you're 6.5 feet tall and weigh 350 pounds, you can effectively use a 50 caliber hand cannon. There's plenty of videos on the internet showing that if you're much smaller than that, you can't.
Indeed, there are.
But they're fun to watch.
Oh, they're hilarious. So I'm not a gun guy. I own one firearm, but every once in a while, people will come up and say, "Hey, I really, really like the all your gun stuff." I was like, "Thank you. Wikipedia is awesome." They're like, "Where did you serve?" I was like, "Denny's." They're like, "You were never in the military?" I'm like, ever since I've been alive, they require haircuts. It's been an all-volunteer army, and they require haircuts. Those two things combined.
May it always stay an all-volunteer army.
Absolutely. I care less now that I'm too old to get drafted. But
since we talked about the characters, do you have a favorite character archetype to put in your novels?
No, I like pretty much every book I work on. There's something that I want to play with character-wise. There's something that I haven't done. So and it always changes. So I just throw it in there, work on it for a few months, and then send it to my editors, and they work on it for a little while, and then I do as I'm told and work on it some more. And but no, I don't know that I mean, smart alecky protagonist, sure, but that's all really.
I never would have got the smart ass vibe from you.
Can't imagine. I mean, I'm a sincere MFer.
That's right. So speaking of, sincerity. In miniseries, the worlds where the stories take place are as much a character as the protagonist and the antagonist. So, other than rednecks and cabins in the woods, what can we expect from this universe you've created?
Nah, that's about it, bro. It's our world, just a little bit off axis. So there are monsters, and I can make stuff up. But I do work pretty hard at getting most of the geography right, and an alarming number of the places where things happen are places where I've been, including the strip club made from a double wide trailer, which was in a different short story for a different series, but that's a real thing and as terrifying as it sounds.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds pretty terrifying.
I should have known better. When the paved road ran out and it turned to gravel and my GPS said you have arrived and there's nothing but corn on either side of the road, I should have just turned around then.
Did they have their teeth? I
did not get close enough to check.
So, Scattered, Smothered, and Chunked is clearly part of a series. I know because it says so on Amazon, and you told us earlier.
Yep.
Currently 5 books out in this series, seasons 1 through 5. So, is their story done? Will there be more? What's coming next?
There will absolutely be more. At the end of season 5, I did brutal, ugly, nasty things to Bubba and his people. Most of season 5 was a crossover between Bubba and the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter series, because fans have been saying, who would win in a fight? We want to see these crossover. And I keep thinking, y'all, that's complicated. But they asked long enough, and I finally sucked it up and wrote it. So in Harker's 7 and 8 crossover with Bubba season 5, episodes 2, 3, and 4. And at the end of season 5, I leave Bubba at a place where he basically needs to reinvent himself. So there will be more. It's probably going to be middle of 2022 before any new Bubba comes out, because I want to take some time when I finish this Harker book to work on some unrelated projects that I've got half finished. And I want to give all of this time to settle and figure out where we're going with Bubba, because it is going to be a new direction.
So, question: are they in the same universe at least?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Bubba and
you
Harker,
did like a Mercedes Lackey, where her bards and her Diana series are all in the same universe. Yes,
and that also means that all of the spin-off series, Eric Asher's Mason Dixon books, J.D. Blackrose's Jess Friedman books, Teresa Glover's Caitlin Kelly books, L.R. Gould's Peterson Apostles books, Judy Black's Finnegan Family books, all of those are also in the same universe. So Bubba has made an appearance in one of Eric Asher's Mason Dixon novellas, and I sent Harker to visit, and Harker has dealt with some of the people in some of Gail Martin's novellas that she does for us. So, and because I own the publishing company, it's easier for me to split the royalties on all that, because I'm already writing checks to these people.
Because does that get confusing?
No, because since I own the base Bubba IP and I own the publishing company, the deal I cut was I just take the publisher cut and I don't take an IP owner cut on top of it, because that would make the math hard. So it's just like if their stuff, it's the same royalty split as if their stuff was not related to any of my work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it works out well for the authors, and it makes my life easier when it's time to do royalties every quarter. So I'm all for it.
So we know that every literary universe has its own consistent rules of science. Well, you've set this in Modernia, so that's a given. But what about magic? Was there sort of magical stuff in this book, or just the
yeah. Well, there's less in Bubba than there is in Harker. Bubba is mostly cryptids and critters, and Harker is demons and magic. But every once in a while, they do cross over. So Bubba doesn't have any magic that I've told anyone about, and doesn't have any magical items that I've told anyone about. But he did go to Fairyland. So there, his regular pistol rounds aren't very useful against fairies. Getting shot with a 50 caliber pistol still hurts, even if only cold iron can kill you, because it's still a big bullet going real fast. So even if it doesn't kill you, it still hurts. But he carries 3 different kinds of magazines. He carries regular ammunition, then he carries magazines with cold iron rounds, and then he carries some that alternate between silver tipped and phosphorus tipped, because a lot of things don't like silver, and kind of nothing likes being set on fire.
Well, to quote Major Payne, he might not be dead, but he sure ain't happy when you shoot him. So I think it still gets the point across.
Yeah, I kind of took some of the philosophy from the first Anita Blake book, where she was talking about, somebody was talking to her about shooting a vampire in the chest, and they said, "Well, I thought you had to stake him through the heart." And she said, "If I just blow the entire heart out the back of his rib cage, it's the same thing."
Pretty effective.
So, if you shoot somebody enough times that their head falls off, same thing as cutting it off with a sword.
Fair enough. So, is there any tech or magic from this world that you would abuse?
I mean, if I had any magic, I would abuse the crap out of it regardless.
Do what?
Anything I could. I mean, make me telekinetic and I am never going to the fridge again. Let me turn invisible. I'll never wear pants again.
No, pants are a thing. You must wear them.
I'm wearing pants. I mean, they're sweats, but
I don't care.
They are pants. Yeah,
I mean, the camera is on. The bottom should be on.
I agree, because you never know when you're going to have to stand up in a hurry, and you don't want to display your shortcomings to the world.
So,
fair enough.
You have fantastic creatures in your universe, but did you go about? Do you have aliens though?
Kinda. Gail Martin in her Mark Wojcik books has introduced the concept of there being aliens in the universe. I haven't written them. There almost certainly are, just because if there's infinite planets out there, it doesn't make any sense that ours is the only one with anything on it. And if we managed to evolve into semi-intelligence, somebody else probably did too.
Fair enough.
There's just math involved. You get to big enough numbers and you're gonna repeat.
So, how do you go about creating your magical creatures when you write them? Are they inspired by nightmares, too much time at Waffle House, too many late nights at a convention?
Usually I go to a website that's Encyclopedia of Monsters, and I look up one that I haven't used before, and if it seems interesting, I'll use it. So they're all from folklore, really. And I decide what pieces I like and what pieces I don't like. So I glom on things from multiple sources. So I liked that fairies are vulnerable to cold iron and not much else. I don't really like the bit about fairies not being able to lie, because then they have to get in this convoluted truth telling, and that takes more dialogue. And it's too big a pause between me blowing something up. So I didn't use that bit. The whole bit about you can't eat anything in fairy or you're trapped there, I didn't like that, so I didn't use it. I like that dragons are shapeshifters, so I used that. take bits and pieces from here and there and throw them in a blender and pour some tequila and triple sec over. Oh, wait, nope, different recipe. Never mind.
So we're winding down now, but is there anything we haven't asked you about the Bubba universe that you might want to tell us?
This is season 5, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that has just released, is an experiment of sorts for me, because it's the first time we've done Bubba audio books that are not Audible exclusive. Wow. We paid for the production up front, and they're going to be available on all audiobook formats. So you can also go to a website called Authors Direct and buy them directly from us, from Falstaff Books. So it's a market experiment to see how that works. And also, I wasn't nuts about some of the
Audible Gate, which I did share about in the book group.
Right.
So we won't necessarily go into it, but if you're listening and you're curious, feel free to ask us, and I will share with you the source material and everything else in the group. Because JR gets really weird when we start dissing on the on Bezo Buzzo.
I mean, look, most of my income comes from the great and mighty Zahn. So
yeah, but that doesn't mean that you have to like everything they do.
I do not. If I had the money to fly to space in a giant penis, I certainly would.
Yes, but would you come
just
back?
To see what comes out the top. Wait, what? So, on that happy note, how can listeners find you?
Check the show notes. That's how you find me. Just look for my name. It's John Hartness on basically everything. It's johnhartness.com. It's at John Hartness on Twitter. It's falstaffbooks.com. It's at fault. I don't know if it's at Falstaff Books on Twitter. I think that one might have been taken. Whatever. Google me. It'll be fine. You will not come up with any of the NSFW results you came up with when you Googled Larry Flint. See, bringing it back around.
I see what you did there. And
probably the best way for people to interact with me is my Facebook group, which is facebook.com/John G. Hartness. Or maybe it's John G. Hartness Books. It's a group. Look it up. There's a Facebook group for my books. But that's probably the best way to ask me questions or interact with me, tell me how brilliant I am. I mean, you can tell me I suck too, but I'll just block your ass. I ain't got time for that.
So are you going to put up a poll maybe about what color you're going to dye your hair next?
No. If I decide to let anyone else have input into it other than my wife, I raffled it off once.
Yeah, I remember.
I raised like $500 for charity to get people to pick my hair color. So I'll probably do that. Maybe around Christmas, I'll auction off you choose what color my hair is. I don't know. You can't even really see that it's purple right now, but there.
Yes. There, right. I see the purples.
Yeah.
You can find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters and tack blades, anchor.fm/blasters -and blades. You can find us on the Twitters at SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email the show at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. You can send a hate mail to Cisca and blastersandbladepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on the Facebooks with facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades podcast. You can support the show for as little as 99 cents and a one-time fee at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast. I promise I will keep my co-hosts Nick Garber and Doc Cisca duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders.
Death before sobriety.
Or you can support us on a reoccurring basis on our website at anchor.fm/blasters and blades. There we go.
That was a lot of words, bro.
I know. It's always impressive he gets through it.
That was a lot of words. I couldn't even stand to heckle you. I was like, man, I'm just gonna let him go. That's impressive.
Thank you for spending your precious time with us. For the absentee, overworked, very addle-brained Nick Garber, for the equally addle-brained, pineapple on pizza loving J.R. Handley. I'm Cisca. This is the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week, same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, picking